Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid. So, just thought I'd do a little feature today. It's called the Nam on Celluloid, just about Vietnam films, representations of the war on film. So I've always had, an obsession, interest in this, and was lucky enough to visit Vietnam in 2017. Cracking in there, the sort of first Vietnam War film is the Grease Berets with John Wayne, which is basically, a right wing, we should be in Vietnam film directed by John Wayne, completely at odds by that point with the way the perception of the war is going at home, and particularly with the counterculture, but not with the silent majority, because Nixon will get re-elected in 72. I must confess I've never watched this film. I've seen clips of it on TV, but I've just never wanted to watch it. Then that was it until 1978, and you got The Boys in Company C, directed by Sidney J. Furie, and Go Tell the Spartans, directed by Ted Post. Incidentally, both these films have an actor called Craig Wasson in, who's in Ghost Story, and he's in Body Double Brian De Palma. But The Boys in Company C has the kind of pre-training, and then they got a Nam. Go Tell the Spartans is really about the early days of the military being out there, and the sort of the title of the film really referencing the legend of Sparta, and that it's really about, look, tell the people who are going to come over what to expect. It's about the build up. America had sort of representation there going back to the late 50s. So that's quite interesting film. It looks a bit like a TV film. It's not brilliantly made, but it's interesting. The film We Were Soldiers, the Mel Gibson one, which is the last sort of big scale Vietnam War film, would reference the French being there at the early 50s, and being beaten by the Vietnamese. A kind of precursor to what would happen to the Americans when they went out there. Then obviously you get your first classic, which is The Deer Hunter. This is about the effect on people and the war back home, really. Obviously the other sequences in Vietnam, the middle chunk of the film is kind of split into 3 acts. I do think it's a superb film, but it is problematic. It's not critical enough of America's involvement, and it has the famous Russian roulette sequence, which is a superb sequence cinematically. When De Niro turns tables on his captors, you've got like, yeah, come on, but the evidence is that this never went on. It's completely kind of fiction, and it puts that thing of makes the Viet Cong as the enemy, which they were to the Americans, but the Americans went in there, and the argument is they had no business going in there. It was for Vietnam to sort out its issue. Ho Chi Minh just wanted a communist Vietnam. He didn't want to spread communism like a lot of communists. There was only Che Guevara and Trotsky, I think, in history, who wanted to go out there and spread communism. Stalin, people like that, just kept communism in their own countries, and this was part of the American paranoia, really, the red tide, as it were. So Deer Hunter, yeah, superb, amazing performance by De Niro, Meryl Streep, John Cazale, Walken. But emotionally manipulative, and then having them sing the national anthem at the end, Chimino, losing grip a bit, maybe chasing those Academy votes. One of the weird scenes in this film is a bit where De Niro, the second time I think he goes hunting, and it's the bit where he doesn't shoot the deer. There's a bit where he's kind of walking across the top of a kind of tarn or something, like a little lake up in the mountains, and he's reflected in the surface, and it's playing all this kind of operatic music. It's almost like a German, Nazi era kind of mountain film, Lenny Riefenstahl or something. It's kind of man and nature, striking sequence, but it's a powerful film. Of course, you get Apocalypse Now, 1979, stunning piece of filmmaking. I think this, is the one that captures the insanity of the war by using the source material of Joseph Conrad. It looks at it as a colonial war, and the idea that the Americans are wanting to impose their values on another society, and it's the fact that Brando, just goes mental, what he does in the jungle, it's kind of mirroring, stuff like that went on like in the Belgian Congo. back in I suppose, in the 19th century, which is what, Heart of Darkness is the Conrad novel is set in, I think. But that's just a classic, incredible piece of filmmaking. Just prior to this, you get Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver, and that's a depiction of the Vietnam vet, sent mad, really. He comes back from the physical jungle into the urban jungle, and he's isolated. Obviously, that film goes different ways, but a film that's always really touched me with that depiction of the Vietnam vet and the way they treated his in First Blood. I think the scenes of Stallone when he's just walking into town, he just wants to go and see his mate, and he finds out that Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a substance they put on, I suppose, some kind of crop dusting type thing that they put on foliage, vegetation, and it destroyed it to clear areas. So the Americans did that so they could find where the Kong were hiding out, as it were. His mates died of cancer due to that. And then, he's just walking through town, and he gets, told by the sheriff, he can't come here, and he's like, well, why can't I? It's a free country. I've served my country. I think that's the difficult thing, isn't it? He's gone and served his country, but not in what is seen as a just war. Later on, I think in '85, they were getting on a victory parade, vets, and a war memorial, but they were tarnished by what had happened in Vietnam. Because America's lost the World War, although they never declared they'd lose it, and B, because of actions that went on, like the My Lai massacre. So that's interesting. First Blood. I've always liked that element. The way you get on side with the Stallone character. Then there's a kind of gap for the big films. Then you get Oliver Stone's Platoon. I watched this again recently. I think it's really, really good. It held up really well. I was expecting not to like it. It's kind of that rite of passage film. It's kind of like Star Wars. You've got the good father figure, Willem Dafoe, the Obi-Wan figure, and then Tom Berenger, the dark father figure, the Darth Vader. But I think because Stone had combat experience in Nam and was a veteran himself, I think the combat scenes in the jungle, although I've never experienced it myself, are superbly done, and I'd imagine veterans who'd experienced that would really rate that. There was actually a documentary called They Walked Into Sunlight, I think, a few years ago, which was really good, which was about an attack in a jungle area of Nam where Americans got killed, and it was really good, really moving documentary. But yeah, Platoon, very, very, very good film. It holds up. And then there's the sequence, the My Lai sequence, as I call it, where they go to the camp and the Kevin Dillon character beats the guy to death. He's got a learning difficulties. It's just a really horrible scene. And I think this is the problem with these films is and this is all these films, it's like, look what America's done itself. And in them there will be one sequence where they kill some villagers indiscriminately, but they never look at what it's done to the people of Vietnam, the innocent villagers. When I went to Vietnam, I went up to My Song area where the My Lai massacre took place, to the museum. And aside from being incredibly poignant, it is horrific what went on up there, what happened. Babies were murdered by American GIs. I'll not go into the details. You can read the book 4 Hours at My Lai, a great piece of investigative journalism. And then you get Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket coming out the following year. And I think Platoon sort of harms, although Full Metal Jacket does well at the box office, it kind of harms its Oscar chances because Platoon's won the Oscars. But it's all true, Full Metal Jacket can leave you cold, but it's a great technical tour de force. Oliver Stone's a good filmmaker, very good, but he's not Kubrick. And this is a film that's just got better with age. I think this is one of the first, not only the first Vietnam films I saw, but it's one of the first films I saw where I was about 16, you sort of realised that there were people behind the camera who had a way of doing things and shot things a certain way, and this elevated the film. So the first part of the film, it uses the training sequence, so mirroring the Boys in Company C. I think Ali Emery might be in the Boys in Company C actually, but it's incredible. The Ali Emery character is a real life drill sergeant, and he improvised his dialogue. It's stunning. It's got incredibly, it's incredibly well shot. The second half of the film is set in Vietnam, but it's in urban combat. I always preferred the first half, but as I get older, I like the second half just as much. Although now I kind of view some of the dialogue scenes, particularly when the GIs are sat around and they're, basically negotiating with a pimp and a prostitute, you sort of view those differently when you're a young lad. You get into the kind of macho side of that. But now, when I look at it, I think more of like the sort of baying male horde and the young girl. Vulnerability of her. The climax of the film when they shoot the sniper and they find out she's a female. It's almost like a metaphor of gang rape, really. Like someone shot and they stand around the male horde and survey, their handiwork. There's bits in that film like there's a scene where the camera tracks across, in the cyber sequence, and the attention to detail in the frame is stunning. I think the only thing that lets it down in the training sequences, it's obviously shot in England. Kubrick really should have sorted that out. There's bits in Lolita going back to there where it's supposed to be American. It's like, yeah, you're in Surrey or something. But yeah, superb piece of filmmaking. Full Metal Jacket, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Deer and Apocalypse Now. Those four films stand out way above all the other ones. I think it was picking a fifth one. Born on the 4th of July is a good film. Again, it's like, look what the war's done to America, look what it's done to us. There's no attempt to look at it from the Vietnamese side. Oliver Stone tried doing that with a film called Heaven and Earth with Tommy Lee Jones in 1993, but it was a flop and it wasn't a very good film. And I guess that's, maybe that's something, maybe American filmmakers, they can only, it's just one of those things you can only perceive it from your experience. There was talk of doing a film about the Mile High Massacre called Pinkville. That was the nickname for the area around My Song. I think it's called Me Song, My Song, with Bruce Willis and Oliver Stone, but that never came to fruition. Now you've got Casualties of War, which is another Brian De Palma's take on it in 1989, which has got a great performance by Sean Penn. But I've said it before, my De Palma director's feature. I may have shared that by now, I might not, I don't know. But it's just very rapey the way it's just coming all from the American perspective. It's all about Michael J. Fox and his masculinity and not acting. Doesn't focus enough on the horror of what's happened to the young girl, the victim. So they're complicated, these, and it's kind of died off. You don't really get films. There was Tigerland, which was it was pretty good, another kind of training, doing the training for Nam. Another one's Dead Presidents as well. It's just looking at there. That's something in Vietnam films or American films, particularly of the 80s, Vietnam was used as a kind of way of creating fraternal bonds. Often you had characters who would be mates because they met in Vietnam. I think Lethal Weapon references that with Danny Glover and the guy who ends up betraying him. I think the Presidio with Sean Connery. I have a feeling Jack Warden's character, they've been in a Nam. Could be wrong there. Dead Presidents, the young African American guys who come back from Nam. Of course, African Americans, were used as cannon fodder in Vietnam, and they come back and rob banks, and they've got their skill set and a lot of their things from their training and their time in Vietnam and their trust of each other. Recently, Spike Lee did Da 5 Bloods that went straight to Netflix, and that was about Vietnam. It was a very poor film, real mishmash. Just didn't know what it wanted to be, that film, but check it out, see what you think. I mentioned We Were Soldiers, so yeah, I think we sort of covered that. The only thing, there's just one more, is the thing they did in the 80s was they made films where they tried to re-win the war. So Rambo, he goes back to rescue GIs, prisoners of war in Nam. That's never been proven. I don't think that there was still prisoner of wars. There was Missing in Action with Chuck Norris. My favourite one I actually really like is Uncommon Valor from 1983. That's directed by Ted Kotcheff, who did First Blood. So the next year he did Uncommon Valor. Gene Hackman leads a crew of mercenaries or ex-NAM guys into rescue because his son's still a prisoner of war. And it's just really patriotic and cheesy, and it's trying to re-win the war. But Hackman's great. It's kind of a bit of a forgotten film, and it's done like a World War II guys on a mission film. So at the end, it has that classic thing where it has each cast member kind of, laughing and smiling, or maybe in a circle or something. At the end, some of them don't make it out, and it's just done literally like a World War II guys on a mission film. He's got a training sequence to go and do the mission, but it's quite sad when Hackman gets that he finds his son's died, I think, but they still rescue the GIs, and they win the war, as it were. So that's worth checking out. So yeah, that's a bit of Vietnam on Celluloid. Like I say, I still think there's room for it to be explored more, but nothing will top Ken Burns' 10-part documentary on Vietnam War. I think that might be the final word now. 50 years has passed or so. It gets perspectives from both sides, and that is the thing to watch. They never should have gone there, the Americans, and the American people were lied to. Basically, early on they knew they could never win it. If you're fighting an enemy that's prepared to tunnel something like 100 feet underground and hide out and sit it out, that's not something you can win. And they shouldn't have gone in. Should have left the Vietnamese people to resolve their country themselves. Cheers.